Today we're going to take a look at the 2022 Honda CRF450RL. We'll talk about where Honda's baddest dual sport motorcycle fits in their current model lineup, and we'll go over some of its specs and features as well as some R&D info too. Plus, we'll start it up and show you what it sounds like and a lot more. But first, if you guys find any info in this video helpful, please take a second and hit the like button. Liking the video and commenting below really helps with growing this channel through YouTube's algorithm, and I really appreciate the help. So first up, where does the 450RL fit into Honda's current dual sport model lineup? The first thing to keep in mind is that Honda hasn't announced the entire 2022 lineup just yet, so some of this info will change once we have another announcement in the coming weeks. And first up is the CT125 at $38.99, which is also part of the Mini Moto group, and then you move up to the CRF300L models. You have the standard CRF300L at $52.49, and then you move up to the CRF300L Rally, which bumps you up to $59.99. And if you're confused about the differences between them, check out some of my past videos where we do deep dives into both models. Then we move up to the Dinosaur, also known as the XR650L at $69.99. And last but not least, we have the bike we're looking at today, the most expensive, and for good reason, the CRF450RL at $99.99. I want to take a quick second and say thank you to Southern Honda Power Sports for opening their doors to me and allowing me to come pick through their inventory for these videos. They are a massive Honda Power Sports dealer here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with tons of inventory from new Hondas to used Harleys and everything in between that they sell to people from all over the USA. So check out the link in the description below and head over to their website to see if they can save you some money on your next toy. And now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into a little more info on the CRF450RL. Now first up, do you have any options with this platform? Nope. Unlike the 300L where you can choose between ABS or not and the standard model or a rally version, with the 450 you only have this one version and color. Unless of course you want a CRF450 exclusively for the dirt, and then you have about 24 different 450 models to choose from. And speaking of the rally name, who else wants to see Honda finally bring the CRF450 Rally into production? And when it comes to pricing, this unit has an MSRP of $99.99, which is the same as last year after its PPR, permanent price reduction from $103.99 when it was originally released as the CRF450L. Now let's jump into the chassis and suspension. Honda started off with the CRF450R's chassis, as that's what this bike is largely built off of, with a few changes here and there to match the unit's broader user range and road-going mission compared to just being on a motocross track. The tapered dual spar aluminum frame was made slightly wider at the swing arm pivot points to allow for the engine's extra width needed for the 6-speed transmission over the R's 5-speed. The headstock was also modified to mount a steering lock, and the aluminum swing arm was injected with urethane to reduce road noise. The rear subframe was carried over as well, with the mounting point adjusted to accept a taillight and a single exit exhaust instead of the duals like on the R model. And speaking of taillights, bonus points if you can tell me in the comments below what other bikes use this same taillight. The rake and trail are set at 28.5 degrees and 4.8 inches, while the wheelbase was increased 18 millimeters for added stability, bringing it up to 58.9 inches while having 12.6 inches of ground clearance. And when it comes to its seat height, you better be a giant or be comfortable with not putting both feet flat on the ground, as she sits pretty tall with a 37.2 inch seat height compared to the 650L at 37 and the 300L models that start at 34.7 inches. And on top of all this aluminum to help keep the weight down as much as possible, you also have a titanium 2-gallon fuel tank. Now granted, it may only help you shave a few ounces, you've got to admit it's pretty cool being able to say this or that piece on your bike is made out of titanium.
I mean, just get a look at that.
Every little bit helps though, and all of that helps bring its overall curb weight down to only 291 pounds compared to the 300L. This starts at 309 pounds and the Dinosaur that comes in at 346. When it comes to the suspension, up front you have a 49mm Showa inverted coil spring fork with rebound and compression damping adjustability that helps bring in right at 12 inches of travel. While out back you have Honda's ProLink design with a Showa shock that has adjustable spring preload, rebound and compression damping for you to dial in with 11.8 inches of travel. Then we jump over to the brakes, and Honda made some changes here when compared to the R Model 2. It uses the 450R's design but with additional fade resistance thanks to a thicker disc and a larger capacity reservoir to cut down on brake fade. Up front you have a single 260mm disc with a twin piston caliper, while up back you have a 240mm disc with a single piston caliper. And those brakes are helping slow down a 21-inch wheel up front that's wrapped with a 80x100 IRC GP21 tire, while in the rear, Honda swapped out the R model's 19-inch wheel for an 18-inch setup, which opens the door for more tire options, and it's wrapped with a 120x80 IRC GP22. The wheels aren't your run-of-the-mill setup either. They are DID Dirt Stars and should come on every Honda CRF in my opinion, but what do you guys think? And next up, let's jump into the engine and drivetrain. At its core, it's a 449.7cc liquid-cooled 10-degree unicam 4-valve single-cylinder 4-stroke engine. Honda started with the CRF450R's power plant, but it needed some work to make it more street-friendly and so that it could pass certain regulations around the world, including at the time the latest Euro 4 regulations. While the fundamental architecture of the engine remains the same, many details needed to be changed to support the broader role this bike was intended for. Things like the crank's mass was increased, resulting in 13% more inertia, which for a trail rider means improved torque feel and response. Valve timing was also revised to give you a more broad and smoother power delivery, as let's face it, if you've ever ridden a 450R, they are violent. They are insanely fast and will make you giggle like a little schoolgirl, but that aggressiveness isn't necessarily what everyone wants when shopping for a dual sport bike. No, don't get me wrong, some do, but not everyone. Honda also went to work on cutting down the overall noise from the engine, with the left and right covers both wearing outer covers to restrict some of the racket that this engine pumps out. Its bore and stroke is unchanged from the R, coming in at 96 by 62.1 millimeters, but the piston now uses 3 rings instead of 2 for improved durability mile after mile, and you also have a gear-driven counterbalancer to try to keep it as smooth as possible. They did drop the compression ratio, which is part of the reason for the horsepower drop from the R model, aside from overall tuning, and it now comes in at 12:1 compared to 13.5:1. And helping you keep this setup cooled down are 2 massive radiators with a fan thrown in there too. Now what does all this equal to when it comes to performance numbers? She's pumping out 41.7 horsepower and 23.6 foot-pounds of torque. And helping you put that power to the ground is a 6-speed transmission with a clutch that has 7 friction discs with a 2mm clutch plate, and that's helping it turn a 520 chain with 13 and 51 tooth sprockets. Now when it comes to maintaining this engine, that's where you really need to pay attention, as not everyone is going to be happy about these numbers, as they are quite a bit different from your other dual sport Hondas. Unlike the 300L models where you can go 8,000 miles between oil changes and then every 2,000 miles for the 650L, the 450RL is every 600 miles. Yeah, every 600 miles. Why is that? Well, it all goes back to where this engine came from and what it was originally designed for. The 450R was never meant to be on the street eating up mile after mile. It was designed to be in a race bike, and with that comes more maintenance, as you can see here in the maintenance schedule, so keep that in mind. Now let's bounce around the bike and touch on a few different things. Sadly, you don't have the advanced electronics package that the R model has with different modes, launch control, and so on, but in place of that, you get LED lighting all the way around. And on that note, I really wish Honda would trickle this headlight and turn signal setup down to the rest of the models in the lineup, but what do you guys think? Now it's 2022, so of course it has electric start, which is powered by a lithium-ion battery to help keep weight down, but sadly no backup kickstart. The same could be said about the other 450 models though, so that's nothing new there. And when it comes to gauges, I do wish we had something a little more advanced than what we have here, but it does give you the basic info you'll need and in a small package. Normally I wouldn't mention a side stand, but with this bike having one made out of forged aluminum, we've got to show it a little love because of how pretty it is. Now let's start the bike up and show you guys what it sounds like, and then we'll come back for a few more things. And that's the 2022 Honda CRF450RL. Honda's most expensive, but also their most capable dual sport bike they've ever built for the public. Is it perfect? No, far from it. But how many bikes out there are perfect? Not many, as what works for me may not work for you, and so on, which makes it a fine line to walk when it comes to building one bike that checks everyone's boxes and does everything perfectly, all while not being priced too high. If you want a run-of-the-mill dual sport bike and you don't have to have the best of the best, I would take a look at the 300L models, as they are almost half the price of this 450 and will handle what the majority of us can throw at it. However, if you're the kind of person that wants the best because you plan on really pushing it off-road and you need the suspension adjustability and a lighter package while having that extra power to boot, this is it. And in a time where we have more and more of a push towards electric bikes and detuned platforms because of emissions, let alone one that's 50 state legal off-road like this 450, platforms like this may not be around for much longer. But before I ramble on even more and bore you guys to death, what do you guys think about the 450RL platform? And since we didn't get any changes for 2022, what do you think Honda needs to change next to really bring it to the next level? And do you guys want to see Honda finally bring the CRF450 Rally into production that we've been teased with for years now? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section, and I'll be joining in on the conversation too. But that's a wrap for this one. Thanks again for watching and supporting all of this. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.